All right, we are here in Wickenburg, Arizona at Simpson Ranch, and we have Larry Simpson, the real deal. We're going to photograph him in front of this barn, and it's about 8:45, so the sun is starting to get a little higher. It's going to get really contrasty and bright, and one of the things that I have to the challenge of working in Arizona is that harsh light that constantly is there. If you are working for a client scenario where you're shooting all day long, you can't always be at the perfect time of the, like early morning or late afternoon. So you need as much power as you can to battle that sun. So one of the things I always do is I have to look at what I call the Sunny 16. That's the base that I have to deal with. That is f/16 at ISO 100 at 100 shutter speed. That would be considered the what we call a perfect exposure at say 10 o'clock to maybe 4 o'clock. Depends on this is winter, kind of winter months. But the summer, it's at 6 in the morning, the sun's already up and it's too late. So I have to overpower the sun. Now right now I have a tree causing shade, plus my softbox is causing some shade on Larry. That gives me the ability to go and actually control the light onto his face. So I'm looking at all these elements. I've got a barn in the background. I want that to one side of his shoulder. He's leaning on a little post there that gives a little bit of a, kind of a comfort for him to kind of have something to rest on. And so my settings right now, I have to deal with my sync speed. So every camera is going to be a little different. Most of the time it's around 200th of a second. This camera is at 1/25th. Some go around 2/50th. So until I go to high speed sync, I have to keep my shutter speed at or below the 1/25th to do standard strobe setup. All right, so one of the things I always talk about is that I have to work under a certain set of parameters, and that limits what I can do. So it's really not that complicated once you understand what your limits are. So right now I'm going to set my shutter speed at 1/25th, and I usually start around ISO 100 to 200, depending on what the scene is. And then I'm going to try to get that background just a little bit darker than what would be considered a normal exposure between him and the background, because I want to separate him from the background. That's kind of my style. So if I was doing a lifestyle shoot, I would probably keep it pretty even. But with a portrait, with a little character-driven portrait, I want to darken that background down a little bit. So right now, I know pretty much I'm going to set my camera up around 1/25th, f/16, f/18 at 200 ISO or 100 ISO, somewhere around there. So it's not, once I figure that out, then I take a couple pictures, then I kind of evaluate, looking at the back of the monitor, at what direction to go in. So I have a 3x4 softbox, the Westcott softbox right here, the switch, as my main cross light, and that's going to be what we call the cross light Rembrandt kind of light, because the sun's coming in this direction. So I always push the main light in the direction that the sun is going. Makes sense, right? It took me a long time to figure that out. There's a lot of things in lighting that always takes years of just practicing, making lots of mistakes before you understand. Then I have a little teeny edge light over here. It's a 2x3, and that's got a grid on it. That's going to cast just a little bit of rim light on the back of his neck, just to give a little separation. Now I don't want to go too far on that because that wouldn't be realistic, but if the sun's hitting the building, or like maybe like there's another structure over here, it'll cause a little bit of rim light on his back of his neck. So that's my whole setup. We're going to start out with lots of depth of field, and then we're going to maybe mix it up and try some high-speed sync and maybe with an ND filter. So let's start here. All right, so Larry, let's get back straight into the lens here. I got my eye tracking on, so I'm right on his eye. This looks great. Now, we decided that we're going to try to get Larry to have a rope because we're trying to tell a story. This is an environmental portrait. We've got the barn. You can see he's got the weathered hands, and he's the real deal, right? So maybe we get the rope, and that way we can kind of tell this story. This is a working ranch, so there's a lot of things going on here that we have to kind of watch out for. But, oh, there we go, Larry. That's perfect. So, yeah, lean back on that rail, and then, exactly. All right. Now, one of the things that I find really interesting is that sometimes you add one element and it makes the shot, right? Sometimes it's just missing one thing. So I think this rope is going to add a little bit to it. Okay, hold on. Let me switch this a little bit right there. And then just drop your chin down just a little bit. I want to see. All right, so one of the things I've been doing for well over 30 years is taking a scrim jim out into the field to block my light source. So if I don't have a tree or a building or something to block and put my subject in shade, I have to create my own shade. And so this is the 4x4. You can get the full 8x8. And I've had two 8x8s for, like I said, at least 30 years. I don't know when they came out, the Scrim Jims came out, but I was one of the first to buy them. And all my commercial ad stuff was done with these things set up. So what that allows me to do is when my light hits my subject, I have complete control over the value hitting him. There's no contamination of the sun. Now right now his feet are in shade. I also carry a black, one of the 5x7 black X-drop cloths, and I can just clip it on here to bring a little extra if I need to cover his feet. So I'm always using this to go and be able to control my light. So let's go back to this. This is very simple. My personality, I love the ability to go and manipulate my light and control it to exactly where I want to go. There's photographers that they just take a camera and they shoot from their hips, and that's what they do. I like the opposite, which is complete control. And the reason why is I want to build it to where I say, I've done everything I can to get the best shot possible. I've done every variable I can possibly get. And so having these Scrim Jims or something that can block the light gives me that ability. Now, the other thing that's important too is having the power to get to my subject. And we're going to talk more about that as we go along. But that is critical out here in this harsh environment. I'm at 44 millimeters. So I'm going to do one a little bit wider so we have that, just so we can make sure that we are covered ourselves here. Okay. Ooh, and I got a little bit of the roof. That actually looks kind of nice. One of the things I've learned 45 years of shooting for clients is that you have to give them variables or options for later for layouts. So I'm always thinking about, okay, moving in, moving back, horizontal, vertical, all those things, so that the client later, when they ask for something, I say, oh yeah, I got it. I covered it. So let's do a little zoom in, a little tighter, right about there. Oh, that looks good, Larry. Okay. Now I'm gonna move this light just a fraction forward. I'm often moving my main light here. It's going 90 degrees cross light parallel to the axis of the lens. And I'm going to move that light forward and backwards to get that light to cross over to his cheek just a little bit. That's the Rembrandt triangle. So I just kind of watch that to make sure that it's actually hitting his cheek a little bit. Okay. Ah, that's perfect. Now let me back up a little bit, get a little more of you in there. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this looks great. I knew this was going to be a good shot. Now let me lower this down a little bit. Get just the top of that. Oh my goodness, Larry, this looks really good. Since I mentioned that I might do a vertical just for kicks, let's do it. That way we're covered. I did a book on the Navajo, and I spent 2 years working out of a Volkswagen van, little pop-up. And back in the day, I'd shoot a Polaroid of my subjects, and then I'd sit in my van with a little dome light, and I'd flip through all my Polaroids looking, what did I do wrong? What did I make a mistake? How did I can make it better? So now we're in the greatest age of photography because we have all these tools that can help us get our shot. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. I try not to get too excited because then later I watch the footage and I think, I'm like a little kid out here, which is true, right? You have to love what you do. Wow, that barn looks perfect. We got a little bit of wispy clouds in the sky. The other thing that I also do, because I've shot these athletes, is you try to make someone look like a hero and you shoot up just slightly. Kind of gives it the superhero look. So sometimes I'll go down on the angle just a little bit more to give it up angle. Oh. When I have my subject change the direction of what they're looking at, I often will move my light. So we're gonna do straight on again, and then I'm gonna move you, or have you look, and I'm gonna show you why I changed the light. So let me set it up here. We'll do the straight on one. Here, let's go right about there. Okay, let's go eye tracking, there it is. Okay, this is straight on. And then look that way. Like you're kind of looking off a little bit right there. Now, I'm overlighting his face. So all I do is walk up. I can't go too far because we'll have to maybe do that. Let's see what happens. I got the sun hitting him here. All right, so let's bring this up to block the light on his face. So now the light is coming and raking across his face and having a little more shadow on the right side of his cheek. That looks really good. Now, I'm just gonna have Larry, just look down like you're just really relaxing, kind of like, yeah, right there. Oh, now we're talking. Now we're talking. So this is a little more drama. And then often when I do this, I pick up the value of my edge light. So let's do that. We're gonna go to B light. We're gonna increase the value of that. And I'm at almost full power here. So I'm at 8.8 output. Oh, that looks great. Let's even do it a little more, even more. We're gonna go even a little, just a tad more. And then let's try vertical, so we have it. Okay, so by moving that light away from what we call the classic Rembrandt cross light, I'm now building a little bit more what we call short light, which is the main light is hitting the back side of his face a little bit, giving some highlights across his face. So they call that short light. Broad light is when you take the light and fill the whole face on the side. So we're shortening the lighting up, looks good. So now I think this would be a good opportunity to go to the next level, and that is to just put same lighting, same everything, but I'm gonna now put an ND filter on there so I can take my aperture from 18 all the way up to 1.7 with this lens. And that's gonna throw the background completely out. So let me just do that real quick. All right, we're at F18. We're gonna count up thirds of a stop. Ready? 1, 2, 3, that's one stop. 1, 2, 3, 2 stops. 1, 2, 3, 3 stops. 1, 2, 3, 4 stops. 2, 3, 5 stops. 1, 2, 3, 6 stops. So we're at 6 stops right now. I'm at 2.2 aperture. I want to get to 1.7, so that's another stop. So I'm going to knock my ISO down to 100 ISO because I was at 200. And it should be pretty darn close, at least for my first test shot here. So we're gonna come up here, we're gonna focus on you. A little dark, and I've got the light in the wrong position. So look off that way. Since we already have it there, let's just try it. Beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna go back to 200 ISO. Now, the reason why I'm not too worried about my counting and having it perfect when I do all my calculation is because with digital, it's so simple. You know right away you made the mistake if you went a little bit too far in one direction. So in the old days, we shot Polaroid. It took a while to get the calculation. This makes it go really fast. All right, look, hold on a second. We're gonna move this. right there. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Ah, beautiful. All right, so now I've got my exposure. I need my composition. So I got to back up just a little bit to get, I want to get the right arm on the post, and then like a little bit of that rope. Okay, so let's try that right there. And then look off a little bit more right there. That looks pretty good. So I can flip this one. I think I can flip this one vertical here. And I think that'll fill the frame better right there. Oh yeah. Nice. So now we've got that shot. I'm gonna move in a little tighter. And we're gonna do one just to fill the frame a little bit more here. Right, very good. Let me go horizontal. Now, what's really interesting about picking horizontal versus vertical is when you put your work on your website, you fill it up with horizontal space. But on Instagram, social media, it's vertical. So it's really tough to make sure that you have the right setup. All right, here we go. Look away again, right there. I got to make sure my eye tracking is going to be right on the money because this is very shallow depth of field. All right, so now what we're going to do is go back straight on because we've got this edgy light one. Let's go back. We're going to move our light back into position so it's more cross light. And then we're going to do a really clean, straight on portrait here. All right, so let me take a look at my setup here. Oh, this looks great. Okay, I got to bring my light just a fraction this way. So I get that Rembrandt triangle coming right there. And then I'm going to get the barn on that shoulder a little bit more. Right there, 1, 2, 3. Now I think I'm a little overexposed on, so I'm going to take my ISO down to 100. Well, let's go 125, right there. Perfect. That is absolutely stunning. Okay, the only thing is I need about 8 more inches to get this light. No, I'm good. I just want to get this just a little bit more so that his right cheek gets lit. Just a little, this looks good. That is perfect. All right, we're moving on to our second shot. And one of the things I've done in the last year or two is I will simulate sunlight. And to do that, you have to have a very harsh source. And one of the things that I've sort of figured out over the years is that if you take your source and you back it up from your subject and you get the source, whatever it is, the same size as the sun, you're going to simulate sun perfectly. The other way you can do it is you can take your hand and put it into a shadow onto a wall. Look at the hardness, take a picture of that, take the hardness of the shadow edge, and then go into a studio or some other environment and back that light up until that harshness matches that picture that you did with the sun. So we have 2 options here that I usually use. Depends on how far away I put the light. So if I have a lot of room in a studio or in an outside like this, I will use this light. So that's about what, 8 inches, 9 inches, something like that. All right, Westcott ships their FJ400 and their FJ800s with this standard hood that actually becomes sort of like a protector and a usable hood. So if I don't have a lot of room, I use this as the one I use to simulate my sun. So we're going to take and we're going to set up a Larry with this about 8 to 10 feet from him. And that's going to cast a shadow across his face and light up his jacket and his hat. We're going to get a silhouette on his face. So it's taking this, we already have the sun, but I'm actually blocking him, simulating the sun because I get complete control over my subject. All right, so it's all about environmental portrait storytelling, making the shot sort of come together. Now with Larry, we ended up bringing in a rope sort of in the middle of our series, and that rope literally kind of just added that little extra touch that we needed. So sometimes you have to sort of think about what's the missing element that you need to fill the gap. Now as we're out here, we almost had complete full power out of this thing, the FJ800. Sometimes you need that extra power, not all the time, but when you're outdoors like this and battling the elements, that little extra, that one stop extra really gives me that control that I need. And so I just love the ability now to have this in my toolkit to go out and, again, fulfill the creative decisions that I need to fulfill my vision.